Pick a card, any card. Name one, actually, because a series of spoilers we saw this last weekend coming out of the Calling Auckland are pretty inventive, a creative way to facilitate the use of ninja combo lines in limited play. Today we're discussing these cards, how they work, and then we muse on impacts to constructed play. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, Flesh and Blood folks. Welcome back to Dice Commando and Go Again, a fabulous cast. Thanks for checking in once again. Today we're talking the Shapeshifter combo lines, I guess you can call it, for Ninja, some of the spoilers cards for Outsiders that we saw this last weekend. There's some pretty interesting stuff there. Now, before we get into this, I do want to give a shout out to Man Sant. So as many of you know, I am very passionate about live gameplay, also recorded gameplay, which we put up, plenty of that on this channel as well. Man Sant has been working very hard to get not only the coverage that he supplied so far, but more coverage, right? And expand that coverage and get that stuff on our computer screens, as it were. And one of the things that he's doing to help support that effort is he's now selling ads on some of, or what he's trying to do is sell ads on his live streams to essentially help support what he does, right? And as you guys are well aware, there's a lot of work that goes into that. And it completely makes sense. I think it's a valiant effort. So if you are a store or anyone else who wants to get involved with that, you can contact him and you can buy an ad for rounds, some period of time, work it out with him. But I just want to make sure everyone's aware of that. And again, thank you, Man Sant, for doing what you do. It's great to get that on our computer screens. We know it's a lot of work. So again, if you're interested in supporting him, reach out to him. Right, so as we get into tonight in these cards, first, let's go ahead and think back for those of you who have drafted WTR, right? It was very, very hard to get combos off, right? If you were drafting Katsu, it was very, very hard to get combos off, right? Maybe you arsenal a leg tap into a rising knee or head jab and open the center, but it was basically impossible to line up a 3 combo and a 4 combo. Absolutely, absolutely forget about it. Even if you could draft it by chance, that'd have to be one hell of a draft, especially with the number of M's we had back then. It's probably not going to happen to get that 4 off. It's just too hard to draw with only 1 copy in your deck, right? So sure, in Outsiders draft, while you may still grab up something like a Dishonor, right, which is part of a 4 combo chain, you're not really having any realistic expectations of playing it as part of the combo line. And to be fair, depending on the weapons that we see in this set, maybe it being a blue 0 isn't even relevant to maybe you pass it, right? The logic there being that, hey, you always just took blue 0s with Katsu because you're like, well, that's Kodachi food, right? We might not have Kodachis in this set, so we'll see, right? Dishonor may not be as good for draft fodder. That said, the cards we saw this weekend are really brilliantly designed for this purpose, which is kind of facilitating getting these combos to go off in limited. And I seriously do applaud the creativity of these. It's really, really cool. The first card we saw was the Mask of Many Faces, which is a common ninja equipment head. So instant, for 1 resource, destroy Mask of Many Faces, name a card. The next attack action card you play this turn gains that name. And while it does defend for 1 with Blade Break, that's probably not what you're using it for. Another card we saw this weekend is a common ninja attack action, Be Like Water. So when this hits, you may pay 1 resource. If you do, choose Head Jab, Surging Strike, or Twin Twisters. This gains the chosen name, and go again, and it attacks for 3, presumably 2 and 1, as the pitch cycle goes. Another ninja bonus piece we saw this weekend is Head Leads the Tail. Now, not specifically necessarily part of the Shapeshifter line, but it is probably very enticing for the existing Kitties line. So Head Leads the Tail for 1. Now, again, this is a Majestic, so likely no cycle here. For 1, it attacks for 3. When this attacks, name another card. Attack action cards with that name have +1 attack this combat chain with Go Again. Seems perfectly suited for the Kitties. So getting back to the Shapeshifter line discussion, if we want to call it that, with the headpiece specifically, it's literally an on-demand combo line 1 time. Also, I do want to note that these 2 we've seen kind of removes the need for Surging Strike to be reprinted, so I was probably wrong about that call. Oh well, but yay, we will see. So before we get into kind of the other discussion here, there's been a little bit of confusion as to how these work exactly. So I want to go ahead and clear that up. So specifically, I want to use the Hurricane Kick line to point out a primary example. So with the Hurricane Kick line, normally you're maxed at 2x Hurricane Kicks. Leg tap into Rising Knee, into Hurricane, into Hurricane. And that's because when the second Hurricane comes down, you no longer have Rising Knee as the last link. That said, if you pop the mask and name Rising Knee, giving it to Hurricane, you do. But again, only one extra time, because as soon as that card leaves the battlefield into a new zone, it loses all added properties. So in this case, you'd get a max of 3 Hurricane kicks. So there has been a fair amount of discussion already about the power level of this in constructed play. And while I completely grant that, and we'll get to it in a second, I just want to start off and say I am really impressed with the creativity of design on this. This is a really, really inventive way, Mask of Many Faces, the other card we have, Be Like Water, very, very inventive way to get combo lines into limited play that are very, very hard to execute in limited play. I think it's really, really, really creative. If you're able to draft a Mask of Many Faces, which again is a common, then you are pretty well set up to actually pull off a combo. Now, are you going to be able to pull off the Dishonor 4 combo? Probably not. But being able to pull off a 3-line combo, I think is very, very manageable. And again, making this happen even if it's a 1-2, right? Like a 2-link, probably you're going to pop this on a 3-link, right? 1 in Arsenal, Mask of Many Faces for your Shapeshifter card, and then the 3rd in the link, or however you need it to work. This is actually the 3rd in the, you would need the 3rd in the link, because remember, it doesn't copy the card, it just copies the card name. So the last one you can't rename the last one, right? You would get nothing from that. It would have to be the 1st or the 2nd to actually work. But again, this is very, very, very cool. All right, so now this discussion towards constructed play. I don't know, right? I do see the concern out there by some, but I think with it being one use and a common, so first off, let's just get it out of the way. If it becomes a problem, they can ban it because it's a common, and no one seems to care when we ban commons. We can't ban legendaries, as we've seen, right? But if they just ban it, right? If it's a problem, they've really facilitated a good draft with this, I think, right? I mean, you can't really run combos like we talked about in draft, or in limited, I should say. It's very difficult, and this works. So I think it's great. I think it's great. I also question whether or not you run Mask of Many Faces over Mask of Momentum. Mask of Momentum is really, really, really good because it forces blocks, right? It absolutely forces blocks. And if you're running, say in Constructed, you're trying to do like the Dishonor line, they're going to have to, right? That's a very hard, right? So I'll throw that up, right? The Dishonor line is actually a very hard one to figure out what you want to do with. Because when Surging comes down, do you block Surging and not let them tutor? Probably. But then you can only block so much. By the time you figure out where they're going, that's pretty dangerous. Plus you want to be able to save for the last one. Because if you're blocking early, you're basically counting on stopping them so they can't tutor out what they need for that line, which is fair. But if they somehow have it, you're pretty screwed, right? And again, if they're blocking early or they're coming over the top, Mask of Momentum's pretty good, because if they're saving, like my point is, if they're saving stuff for the end, then they, you force the blocks with Mask of Momentum because they don't want to get that card draw. I don't know. This is very exciting. Very curious to see where this goes. I don't know that you run Mask of Many Faces over Mask of Momentum, but as we talked about in the last video about Dishonor, that Surging Strike being the start to 2 potential combo lines, it's a lot of synergy there. It seems like there's going to be some pretty good decks run around. So anyway, this is all pretty exciting stuff. Now, I kind of not really skipped over it, but Be Like Water is a little more limited in that you have to pay for it, right? So it's a 0/3 for free, which is good. But when it hits, you have to pay 1, and then it gains the name. So I think this is good and limited. I don't think Be Like Water plays in Constructed, especially because it's only the kickoff of the Chane. And most of those are common, such that you can play like the red-blue of them. Or if you're really desperate for them, you could play all 3 of them. So I don't know that Be Like Water sees much outside of draft. And again, paying 1 for it it's a lot, right? And keeping in mind, though, that a Surging Strike is 2 for 5, though. So, I mean, it could work. But I don't think you're playing that in Constructed. I think that's a fair statement. But let me know if you disagree, right? Let me know if you disagree, right? Maybe if you just need that super consistency, or if you need the extra cards. Fair enough. And again, the Surging line, you would have extra resources left over. So that's fair. Do note that this cannot be leg tap, though, which is kind of interesting, right? So it's just surging, head jab, or twin twisters, certainly implying we'll see a Teddy Twisters line either now or later. So anyway, folks, that pretty much wraps it up. I'm pretty excited about this. Again, I think that's clear. I think I've said that like 9 times through this. Being able to pull off combos in Limited, I think is really going to make draft interesting. Because you're not going to be afraid to, pull those end pieces. And I think that's really cool. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up there, but I really want to thank you all for tuning in. This will be I think I have one more cast going up this week, and then we're going to take a break for spoiler season because there's no point in trying to compete with spoiler season, which makes sense. And many of you who follow the channel have already seen the thumbnail and the premiere, thumbnail for the premiere that will go on the 4th at 8 a.m. Pacific time for my spoiler. And I know everybody says it's a doozy, but I think mine's actually a doozy. So anyway, folks, thank you for everything. Have a great week, and go Commando.